to the Let's Talk Boxing podcast. This is the prestigious end of year awards. We hope all our listeners, our viewers have had a fantastic Christmas and a fantastic new year. And we look forward to an exciting 2023, some big fights already on the horizon. But in today's episode, we're going to look back at what was a controversial 2022, some big fights, some big events, and some not so good events in and out of the ring. First of all, I'm going to introduce you to my co-host today on today's podcast, Osh. How's things?
Yeah, things are good. Happy New Year to everyone who's listening and watching. We had a great year last year with the boxing. I can't wait to sit down and have a chat about it. Looking forward to it, mate. Thank you for having me as always.
Absolutely, mate. Good to have you on. And also on today's podcast, the newest member of the SimBoxx team, Rich. Rich, how are we doing?
Very good. Well, thanks, mate. Firstly, Happy New Year to you guys, all your listeners and followers. And also a big thanks to you, Luke, for allowing me to jump on the team, mate. I really appreciate it and can't wait to see what we're going to do together.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the guys listening, make sure you keep your eyes on the SimBoxx YouTube channel going forward. We're going to have plenty of new content on there. But back to today's podcast. Guys, as I say, it's probably the most prestigious award in boxing media, the SimBoxx End of Year Awards. Look forward to getting these out there today. We've got a few different categories with 4 nominations in each. And we will, well, between you guys anyway, you are going to be the judge, jury, and executioner. You'll make your pick from each nominee, make your argument for that pick. And if we become stuck in an argument between the two, then I'll throw in my casting vote. So we have a definitive winner in each category. Before we get into the categories, I just want a couple of things that happened last year that we didn't really share our opinions on, and I just want to briefly touch on it with Osh and Rich. October, maybe this could have been a category on its own, villain of the year, and there would have been a couple of nominees for that. In particular, the Conor Benn saga. I don't really want to pin this on Conor Benn just yet because we don't know the full story, but the whole saga in general, the British Boxing Board of Control, the way they handled it, the way Callis Howland and Eddie Hearn, they went around their business. It all looked a bit shady. So, Rich, what did you make of it? You know, briefly before we get into our awards, what did you make of that whole saga? Because that's what it turned into.
Firstly, being from Brighton, I'm a massive Eubank fan. So I was there, I had tickets, spent a lot of money, hotels, tickets, and I was buzzing. Couldn't wait for weeks and weeks. I think it just took ages for anything to come out. I think they would have known so long before we all got told that it just got played all wrong by not only Eddie, Connor, I think everyone who was involved in it. And even now, we still don't know really what's gone on. And it doesn't give us no idea of why he's done what he's done. Has he used anything? Has he not? And I think we need to know a little bit more to, as I say, we don't know. So I don't want to put it all onto Connor, like you said. But I think we need to know more. We haven't been told enough in the amount of time it's been.
Absolutely. And Osh, if we have another nomination in a villain of the year category, this is unofficial at the minute. But the other one that stuck out for me was the judging for Jack Catterall against Josh Taylor back in February, right at the start of 2022. The first ever all British undisputed fight to be held in Britain. It was up in Scotland. Jack Catterall put on a performance of a lifetime and just didn't get the nod against Josh Taylor. I thought he was a pretty convincing winner. Osh, what did you make of the fight and ultimately the decision that went in Josh Taylor's favour as he retained his belts?
Yeah, that fight seems like a long time ago now, doesn't it? I almost forgot it was last year. Caused a lot of controversy at the time. I think the way it was handled later by Taylor and his coach wasn't great either. Some of the comments that were made after the fight, which I think were rubbing salt in the wounds a little bit for Jack Catterall and for the boxing public. But yeah, I thought he won. I thought he won convincingly. It was impressive because he hadn't been very active leading up to that. Josh Taylor had looked really good at the weight. I do think he has outgrown the weight, which may have hindered his performance. But I do think, you know, Catterall is the champion in waiting in that division for me. Like I say, leading up to that, Taylor had been in with a far better opposition. I'd never really seen Catterall tested. You know, but I think he stepped up that night. It was a coming of age fight for him, and I thought he won convincingly. And yeah, unfortunately, these judging scandals aren't too uncommon these days. Britain seems to be the new Germany at the moment, doesn't it? You know, you have to get a knockout to get a draw here at the moment. So I wasn't too surprised, if I'm completely honest with you. But yeah, it's a rematch I'm looking forward to seeing. I think, to be honest, I'm not sure Taylor wanted it. But I think due to the public demand and the public outcry, he's had to take the fight.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It looks like that fight's going to be penciled in for somewhere in March, and it's going to be one of the most anticipated fights of the year. But we move from the negative to the positives, and there was plenty of positives. Let's get into our first category, which is going to be the Young Fighter of the Year. There's some great nominations here, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through the 4 nominations, have a think, let me know. First, I'll go to Rich, then Osh, you can make your pick for Young Fighter of the Year. Up first is a Mr. Adam Azim. He finished the year 7-0 as a pro with 6 knockouts, and he scored 5 knockout victories in 2022. He stopped Ryland Charlton in November. He headlined the Boxer Show on Sky Sports, and he dispatched Ryland Charlton, who was meant to be somewhat of an acid test for him, a gut check, and he dispatched him in incredible fashion. Next on our list of nominees is the American Keyshawn Davis. Very explosive, very loud, very exuberant, got plenty of personality. He's 7-0, 5 knockouts, 3 wins in 2022. Took a big step up in his most recent fight when he beat Juan Burgos in December. So Keyshawn Davis is the second nomination. Our third nomination is Jared Anderson, the big baby from America, big undefeated heavyweight, 13 wins, 13 knockouts, 2 of which come in 2022. And our final nomination is a Miss Caroline Dubois, arguably the most exciting young female boxer in Europe at the minute. She stopped Sofia Rodriguez in 1 round in her most recent fight on the December 17th Boxer Show. So we've got Adam Azim, Keyshawn Davis, Jared Anderson, and Caroline Dubois. Rich, I'm going to come to you first. Give us your pick for Young Fighter of the Year 2022.
I think I'm going to stay British on this one. It was out of a choice of 2, to be honest. I think Adam Azim has called the attention of everyone. I think he's absolutely phenomenal. Great amateur. I think everyone knew about him anyway, a lot of boxing people. But I think the public are now starting to see that we got some young lad on our hands. I think he just has everything. I just don't see a fault in his game when I watch him, when I see him box. I think the Asian community are going to get behind him like they have done all the great fighters of the past. I just think he has everything. And I was talking about it to someone the other day, and he's the first and only person that really comes into my head when you talk about young fighters. I think Caroline Dubois is fantastic, and I think she's a shoo-in for a world title next year. But I just love Adam. I absolutely love what he's about, love watching him. And I think it's got to be him for me.
Osh, do we have an agreement there with Rich? Do you see it differently? What's your pick for Young Fighter of the Year?
Do you know what? I agree with Rich massively. I think he's a massive standout. I wasn't completely sold until he fought Charlton, because I really, really rate Charlton, and I've always seen him in good fights. He's always in tough fights. I remember when he beat, who was it, the Geordie lad?
Yeah, Joseph Laws.
Yeah, and he was a big underdog in that fight. And I'm not sure if he went up a weight to fight him, and he did a really good demolition job on him that night. And that was when I first saw him. But I thought the way he dismantled Charlton the other day, or the other week, was something a bit special. He's flashy, he hits hard, he's big at the weight, he's fast, he boxes beautifully, he's got beautiful footwork, his head movement. He's a mix of Nas, Amir Khan, he is brilliant. He is fantastic to watch. I'm a big fan.
I was saying that the other day on my channel, a little cross between Nazim and Khan, but I think he might have a little bit more. As a youngster, what they was like at his age, I think he might have a little bit more, and that is saying something.
Yeah,
absolutely. Definitely. High praise from the pair of you there, guys, and there's not much more I can add. I was hoping for a bit of controversy here, a bit of back and forth between you two, but I think it was quite straightforward. That's the Let's Talk Boxing Young Fighter of the Year is Adam Azim. Very well deserved, as you say. It's untapped potential, and he's got a big 2023 ahead. So we look forward to that. I think Keyshawn Davis would have been my pick, but I've got a bit of bias there because I did interview him, and I think that's a bit of a golden goose there when I interviewed Keyshawn Davis. But I can't argue with the choice of Adam Azim. So we move on to our next category. This has got a bit of a domestic bias to it, just because I think the 3 nominees in this category, arguably 3 of the top 4 in terms of world boxing. This is going to be the promoter of the year. We've gone with Eddie Hearn as our first nomination. Our second nomination is new on the scene. He's revitalized Sky Sports Boxing. That's Ben Shalom. And the stalwart the warhorse of Frank Warren. They're the three that I've gone with for the nominations. You could argue that Bob Arum for top rank could have been the fourth pick, but I just think that these three guys are miles ahead of the competition at the minute, both in the UK and across the world, really, because you've got Eddie Hearn doing shows left, right, and centre. So, Osh, I'll come to you first. Promoter of the year, Eddie Hearn, Ben Shalom, or Frank Warren?
I think it's a brilliant question. And I think they're all at different stages of their career. I do feel that Eddie is on the decline a little bit. I feel that Frank Warren has made a bit of a comeback. And I feel that Shalom is on the way up. So they're all very similar in terms of where they are, but they're all at different stages of their promoting career, I would say now. It still has to be Eddie Hearn for me. I still think he's the man. I still think he's the boy. I still think he's the main attraction. And I still think there's some more to come from him. I think he's going to turn this DAZN thing around a little bit because I know they've been getting a lot of stick. I think he's going to continue to be the force in world boxing. And I think he's going to continue to be the draw for most fighters. I really do think the top fighters will still want to sign with her. And I think eventually he will be up there with Sky with DAZN. I really can see it.
Osh, do you think maybe some of the criticism that Eddie Hearn comes in with is a mixture of maybe he set the bar so high because there is nobody else that is doing what he's doing, you know, promoting in all these different territories, promoting Canelo, Anthony Joshua, the biggest names in the sport of boxing. Do you think it's a mixture of him setting the bar so high and then also maybe that he's spreading his butter a little bit too thin by going to these categories, that we're not getting the regular fight nights in the UK, that maybe we're getting one in the UK, one in Australia, one in Spain, one in Italy, and it's not the stacked domestic card that we used to? Do you think that's a bit where the criticisms come from, and that he's set his bar too high himself, that he's not meeting his own high standards previously?
I think the first problem he has is that every boxer wants to fight on Sky. Every single professional boxer wants to fight on Sky Sports. You know, I don't care who you are, where you are in your career. That is still, right now, the goal for most boxers. That's where you want to be. I do agree. I think you can be guilty of having your finger in too many pies sometimes, can't you? Because, you know, his cards used to be stacked domestically. And believe it or not, they weren't pay-per-view. So in terms of value for money and what you are getting, and sometimes people do want to watch fighters on their doorsteps or fighters down the road. Is there a massive interest in watching DAZN in Italy or France or wherever? Not from me. I can't speak for the rest of the British public, but the majority want to see good domestic fights on their doorstep on Sky Sports. And I think that's where he's lacking a little bit.
Absolutely. I think that's a fair argument. Rich, give us your pick from the three nominations for your promoter of the year 2022.
You know what? I completely agree with what he's saying. I think Eddie Hearn has been the man for years, Eddie and Frank. And I think when you look at the events they've put on over the last year, Eddie's definitely put on the bigger events and bigger fights. When you look at Canelo, GGG, your Bivol, your Canelo's, your Usyk, Joshua's. But I'm going to give it to Ben. I just think purely because he's given me my two best events of the year, which was Shields Marshall and Khan Brook. I think he gave us something that many promoters have tried and failed to do over the years. 10 years too late, yes, but we still wanted to see that Khan Brook fight. Didn't go the way I thought it was going to. Brilliant win for Brook. Thoroughly deserved. Demolished him, to be fair. But yeah, I reckon I'm going to give it to Ben just because of what he's done. He's new to the game and he's managed to get where he is pretty quickly. And he's got a great stable of young fighters. And like Osh says, he's got a lot of young British fighters. And I think that's given us all something to watch and be interested in and be able to go and watch it ourselves rather than all over the world.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, I'm going to give it to Ben.
This is the first category where I'm going to have to cast the deciding vote. Now, I think, and I'm glad that you both have gone for these two, because obviously these are my two picks, no disrespect to Frank Warren. I think selling 150,000 tickets across two fights for Tyson Fury was a hell of an achievement. But after that, they weren't too much else. I know he's starting off 2023 with a bit of a bang with Beterbiev against Yard, which is a great fight. But yeah, aside from those two Fury fights, there weren't much from Frank Warren. So Eddie Hearn, he's got the biggest names, he's got the biggest budget. But my pick's going to be Ben Shalom for the same reasons as what Rich made. I think Eddie Hearn's an obvious choice. I think he'd be rightly a winner if he was picked. But Ben Shalom, for the same reasons actually that Rich gave, that he gave the two fights that we wanted to see most, which was Clarissa Shields against Savannah Marshall and Amir Khan against Kell Brook. And not only that, but these were two fights that, in my opinion, Eddie Hearn struggled to get over the line. He had years and years to make these fights, and he never got the job done. Ben Shalom's filled the void at Sky Sports. He's took the bull by the horns. He's signed the likes of Beefy Smith. He's revitalized Natasha Jonas, got her 3 world titles in a weight division way above her natural size. And yeah, he's building stars like Chris Billam-Smith, who wasn't really headlining at Matchroom. He's now headlined twice at Bournemouth, something that Eddie Hearn wasn't able to provide for him. Fraser Clark, he's coming through. Adam Azim, Caroline Dubois, 2 of our young fighter nominees, that they fight under the Boxer banner. So I think 2022, if you're going on pure quality, Eddie Hearn. But overall, I'm going Ben Shalom for doing what he's done on a budget way less than Eddie Hearn. And I know he's threw money at Ben Whittaker and Fraser Clark and some of the Olympic turnovers. But in general, I think Eddie Hearn would have had a much better head start than what Ben Shalom's had. So I'm going to give it the underdog. I'm going to give it Ben Shalom. So we'll
make sure I say, Luke.
Yeah, sorry about that, Osh, but that's going to come into it, bud. Well, this next category, boys, this is a kind of a what you like category, because there was a few different things that I was going to put into this category. You know, do we have a ring walk of the year? Do we have this? Do we have that? But I decided to encompass it all in one category and give it the moment of the year for 2022. So there's a bit of a different mix here. So have a think about what you think is your choice. So my first nominee for moment of the year is the Clarissa Shields against Savannah Marshall, all-female card, you know, a historic moment in female boxing, live on Sky Sports. It broke all kind of viewing records for Sky Sports. Then we've got Tyson Fury's ring walk at Wembley for the Dillian White fight. That was a huge spectacle. The razzmatazz, the fireworks, the ring walk music, Tyson Fury forever the showman. Then we've got Katie Taylor against Amanda Serrano, in particular round 10, the Madison Square Garden, where I think it was, if I was going to narrow it down even further, that last 10 seconds of that round, the fight's in the balance. Amanda Serrano with the onslaught against Katie Taylor. Katie Taylor withstood the onslaught and went on to win on the cards. What a spectacle that was. And then my final choice is another ring walk, and this is Kell Brook against Amir Khan. Again, maybe a bit of bias on my part there because I was at the arena that night, but we all know Kell Brook's going to ring walk to Kanye West and Rihanna. Not Rihanna, is it Rihanna? Or whoever it is. All of the Lights. It's his thing, and it's the same ring walk every time. And when they started with the piano, it was goosebumps. It was eerie. It was like, this is it. This is it. You know, because I was in the arena, I didn't know the whole shebang that was going in with the gloves. I'm sure if you guys were watching on Sky pay-per-view that you would have seen that there was the whole drama with Amir Khan complaining about gloves, and the fight was on, then it was off, and then it was back on again. But yeah, when that first key was pressed on the piano, and they had the live pianist there to ring walk Kell Brook, yeah, that was a nomination. I think I might have swayed you guys already there without giving you the right to pick from the nominations with describing the Kell Brook there. But guys, that's the 4 nominations for the moment of the year 2022. I'll come to Rich first. Rich, are the 4 nominations there? What are you going with for your moment of the year?
Well, I don't think you'll be swaying me on this one, mate. I think this one's pretty easy for me. I think the all-female card that Ben put on was incredible. And like you say, all the records it broke and just the attention it got. And I think it's just what that's going to do for female boxing and young female fighters is just going to be phenomenal. And it was an incredible event. Probably one that Frank and Eddie would have loved to do themselves, but enough one that Ben managed to get over the line, and that's why I give him promoter of the year, and I'm going to give his event this one as well.
Good argument. Osh, for yourself, from the 4 nominations, what would you go with as your moment of the year for 2022?
You know what? The way you passionately described that ring walk almost swayed it for me. I watched it on telly and I got goosebumps. I mean, never mind being there. So that must have been an experience, man. It was a hell of a fight. But I agree with Rich. I've said before on this program how, you know, I'm a massive fan of women's boxing. Value for money every time. Every single fight is a barnstormer. The best fight, the best, time after time. And hopefully now I think they are getting the credit they deserve now, but hopefully even more. And like Rich said, that'll be a huge moment in 10 years' time that look back at that card and go, wow, that was the moment where, things really were on the up for women's boxing, because it was a phenomenal card. It really was a great card, great fight. So, yeah, I agree with Rich. What a moment that was.
Okay, so it's like I've been outvoted again against my bias. I've been outvoted, and the winner of the moment of the year 2022 from the Let's Stop Boxing podcast is the historic all-female card. Clarissa Shields, she was dominant in her victory against Savannah Marshall, and it was a great card. So yeah, it's a real worthy pick. We move on to the next category, which is what we're all in boxing for as fans. We love nothing more than two guys slugging it out, and then one guy falling to the canvas and not answering the count of 10, not answering the referee's shouts. And this is knockout of the year. And there was plenty of knockouts this year. There was some really good shots, and we've had to narrow it down to 4. Guys, I'm going to rattle off the 4 nominations. So again, take in the nominations, have a think. First up was the most recent one. This was December 17th. Chris Billum-Smith, he had a great year. He knocked out Jojai in the headline slot of the boxer card in Bournemouth, so he's in his hometown. He overcomes some early adversity, and then he gets Jojai out there with a punch-perfect combination in the 5th round, and Jojai was out before he hit the deck. It was a brutal knockout. Next on the list, and this is going to be in for a couple of nominations tonight, is in Nottingham, Lee Wood, that spectacular night when he knocked out Mick Conlon in the 12th round. Wood was down in the 1st. He scored a couple of knockdowns late and ultimately knocked Mick Conlon out in scary fashion. He was knocked out of the ring to the floor. He was unconscious, and it was almost like a subdued celebration for a little while. But when you watch it back on YouTube or on DAZN, you realise that was a real cold-blooded knockout from Lee Wood, and it was a crazy moment. Next on the list, we have over in the stateside at super middleweight, Caleb Plant knocking out Andre Durrell in the 9th round. 2-punch combination, textbook. I'm sure Osh will be a big fan of it. Left up to the body, left up to the chin, and he put Andre Durrell's lights out. And then there was that controversial moment, I think he said, what you like with the celebration when he almost mocked burying Andre Durrell in a grave, didn't he? Done that kind of scoop as if he had a shovel and he was burying Durrell. So that caused a lot of uproar on social media. And then the Welshman, again, Osh might be a bit biased there, but we had Joe Cordina in his world title fight. It seemed that it was never going to happen. He had his injuries with his hands. The moment seemed to have passed him by, but then Eddie brings over Agawa to defend his IBF title in Wales. It was almost too good to be true for Joe Cordina. And what makes this even better is if you watch the commentary of Joe Cordina's 2nd round knockout of Agawa, I think it's Joshua Buatsi, who's good friends with Cordina, and he had him on commentary. And he says he needs to hit something here, he needs to land something here, he needs to get Agawa's respect and let him know he's here. And right on cue, Cordina lands the most hellacious right hand you've ever seen and knocks Agawa's spark out, and he wins a world title in his home country. So 4 solid nominations, guys. I'm gonna pass it over to you, and I'm gonna sit back and just pick out of what you guys choose here, because it's 4 solid nominations. So Osh, I'll go to you first.
You know what? I'd love to sit here and speak about everyone for an hour, because they're all belted and they've all got. I always think of the story behind them all. Do you know what I mean? They've all got a great story behind them. Obviously, the Cordina one's a great story. They're all brilliant. But for me, it's got to be the Wood knockout. A few reasons. One, it's the best fight out of a lot of them. It's the best fight out of all them. Second, he was an underdog. I know he was the champion going in, but he was expected to be beaten. A lot of people made out he was just keeping the title warm for Conlon. Obviously, he'd been down himself. He looked, some of those rounds, he took a battering and came back. There were people saying his corner should pull him out. There was all sorts of things being said. And to come back with that knockout in that fashion, in that style, in his hometown, you're going to struggle to beat that. And for me, it beats the rest just on merit. And I'd love to see that fight again, actually. Obviously, we're happy that Conlon was fine. We're happy that he's healthy, and we can look back on it now and talk about it like this, which is nice. Obviously, the health is paramount. But for me, that just overshadows the other ones. That was the knockout of the year for me.
Absolutely, Rich. We'll pass over to you. Osh has made a solid argument there. You're going to be able to sway his other way, or are you agreeing with Osh?
You know what? I can't say too much more. I completely agree with Osh. I think the plant knockout, that would never be in the running for me. I know everyone's got their own opinions and everyone has their arguments in boxing, but I think to show that disrespect while someone's still unconscious, I don't think that one even. For me, I thought that was so disrespectful when he should have waited. Yes, celebrate, but let's make sure the guy's all right and safe and going to go home to his family. So I think the other ones are all great. The Cadena story is brilliant. I think, like he said, but I think the Wood Conlon, for the exact reasons as Osh is saying, has to be the winner. Wood down out of it. I think we all thought he was losing that fight. Even the start of the 12th, I still see him losing. And then to finish like he did and get Conlon out of the ring, luckily he was still safe and well. But to do it the way he did was emphatic. And I think that was a clear winner for knockout of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this will be maybe the only one where we've got a three-way full agreement here that my pick, if it would have had to have been given, would have been for Wood Conlon. Absolutely amazing knockout. But guys, we'll move on to the next category because Wood Conlon is part of this category as well. This is the Let's Talk Boxing Fight of the Year for 2022. First nomination, you won't be surprised to hear, is Lee Wood against Mick Conlon back in March. We don't need to dress that up any more than we already have. What a fantastic fight! Without the knockout, if we take the knockout out and that fight goes 12 rounds, it was still an amazing fight. The way Lee Wood went down early, the build up, the arena that night that it was split in two. One half was Irish, one half was Nottingham. Amazing event. Now with some of these categories, I've tried throwing in a couple of curveballs because you've got your mainstream awards and we don't want to kind of follow in their path. So I've chucked in a couple of left field picks here. So Chris Bullen-Smith is making an appearance again, but not for the Zhozhai fight. This is going back to July again in Bournemouth against Isaac Chamberlain. This was a keep busy fight. That might be a bit disrespectful to Isaac Chamberlain, but this was a fight that Chris Bullen-Smith was expected to win, and it turned into an absolute barnstormer. Back and forth, the momentum changed constantly throughout that fight. Another fight that's going to make an appearance in our categories that we've already spoke about: Amanda Serrano against Katie Taylor. Historic moment for women's boxing, historic moment for boxing in general. Both ladies getting paid over $1 million, the first time that's ever happened in boxing. Two ladies headlining at Madison Square Garden, the first time that's happened in boxing history. An amazing fight. Different moments in that fight where you thought either lady's going to go here, especially in that 10th round. Sorry, I keep making that mistake. 10th round, it's women's boxing. You thought Taylor was going to go there, and she didn't. An amazing occasion. Katie Taylor came out with a victory there. And again, another curveball here. Derek Chisora against Kubrat Pulev, a fight that I think went under the radar, but also the fight that got Derek Chisora his world title shot against Tyson Fury. We won't mention that. That could have been in the villain of the year category earlier on. But Derek Chisora against Pulev, I thought was a real old-fashioned heavyweight clash. Two guys that are way past the best. They had a bit of bad blood from the previous fight. Loose cannons out of the ring, but then in the ring, they produced the goods. And again, that was another fight where the pendulum swept one way, then the other. You're not going to watch it as a boxing purist and think, this is how I'm going to teach, say, for instance, Osh, when he's doing his classes, you're not going to teach your guys to learn to box like Pulev and Chisora fought that night. But in terms of pure entertainment, what a fight. So that's the 4 nominations there, guys. Wood Conlon, Chris Bullen-Smith against Isaac Chamberlain, Katie Taylor against Amanda Serrano, and Derek Chisora against Kubrat Pulev. Osh, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, close for me. You did throw a few curveballs in there, but to be honest with you, I'd forgotten about how good the fights they were until you'd mentioned them. Do you know what I mean? We were sport for choice last year, weren't we? So I think the Conlon fight was a great fight. For me, Katie Taylor Serrano wasn't just one of the best women's fights I've ever seen. It's one of the best fights I've ever seen. That was the intensity, the pace, the technical ability from both girls. I thought it was a brilliant, masterful fight to watch, and I loved every single minute of it. I said in another pod that we had, another chat that we had, I thought Serrano won the fight. It might be controversial, but I thought Serrano won the fight. That was my initial reaction after the fight. But it was very close. It could have gone either way. But I loved that fight. And for me, that really was fight of the year.
Rich, that's another passionate argument from Osh.
You know, and you know what? It's another one that I'm struggling to disagree with him on. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And you know what? That's my argument with the 3 minutes rounds as well. I think women boxing should stay at 2 minutes. I think they conserve more energy. They have a lot more to give. The minute it goes to 3 rounds, they're having to conserve a lot more. They're not going to be able to give and make it as exciting
Absolutely.
as it is. And I think that's 12 rounds. I'm all for. I'm all for 12 rounds, but 2 minutes. What that does is gives us excitement because we're never going to see as many knockouts in female fighting. But with that 2 minutes, they go for it and they leave it all in the ring. And I think when you say you want to go out the ring with no regrets, that 10th round of the Taylor Serrano fight, they definitely had no regrets when that bell went toe to toe in the middle of the ring. It was awesome, and 100% it's got to be that for me.
Absolutely. I think if there was ever going to be a worthy runner-up, I think Wood Conlon is a worthy runner-up. But yeah, I'm with you guys. The fight of the year, male or female, is Katie Taylor against Amanda Serrano. A great occasion, great fight. When something in boxing, how many times, guys, have we been disappointed as boxing fans when you see a fight sign and you think, you know what, this is going to be an absolute barnstormer, and it just doesn't produce the good. Do you remember a few years back with Tony Bellew against Nathan Cleverly, the rematch, and that was on pay-per-view and it just didn't produce the goods. And it happens time and time again. But this one was like Eddie Hearn was shoving it down our throats and Jake Paul was shoving it down our throats, but we couldn't get enough of it. And the fight absolutely delivered. So yeah, rightfully given the Let's Talk Boxing Fight of the Year 2022 is Amanda Serrano against Katie Taylor at Madison Square Garden. So, guys, like everything, all good things must come to an end, and we've reached our final category on the Let's Talk Boxing podcast, end of the year awards, and we come to the most prestigious. This is Fighter of the Year. Again, plenty of worthy nominations that we've not picked, that we could have picked, but we'll go straight into it. Our first pick, Dimitri Bivol, WBA light heavyweight champion. He's 21-0. He defeated Canelo Alvarez this year. He defeated Gilberto Ramirez. Fantastic year for Dimitri Bivol. We've got Clarissa Shields, a long-time rival Savannah Marshall. She beat her. She become undisputed again. Multiple-time undisputed, multiple weight world champion. A great year for Clarissa Shields. And shout out to the ring walk as well against Savannah Marshall. That was a great moment. We've also got Devin Haney, who became undisputed in 2022 and then defended his titles again against George Kambosos. So he finishes the year undefeated and undisputed at lightweight. And Natasha Jonas, 3 fights, 3 world titles up at super middleweight. Guys, 4 big nominations. So we'll go to Osh first. Osh, who's your fighter of the year?
Yeah, all big nominations. For me, it's got to be the man who beat the man. And for me, that's Bivol. Beating Alvarez the way he did. He beat him. It looked comfortable. The scorecards were very close, but he did enough. He boxed beautifully. He boxed to a game plan. He was the biggest, stronger man, but I thought he outboxed him rather than bullied him on the night, which I was very impressed with. And he's very much talked about now. A close second for me is Natasha Jonas, but for me, Bivol steals it.
Good shout. Rich, who would you go with for your fighter of the year?
Yeah. You know what? Completely agree again. I know you want to see us not agree with each other, but just purely because he made it look so easy. I think, like he says, it was close on the cards, but when you watch the fight, he didn't struggle at all. He made it very easy. And I think to do that to Canelo is quite a thing to do.
Absolutely. So I think our universal pick for fighter of the year will be Dimitri Bivol. For the arguments you guys have made, I think he's a worthy winner of. Bivol is rightly given fighter of the year. That victory over Canelo was an upset. If we'd done an upset of the year category, that was something we didn't really look at. I would have looked at Jimmy First as well, his win over Corey Gibbs. So I'll give Jimmy First a shout out for that victory over Corey Gibbs recently on the Boxer card. But Dimitri Bivol was an upset. Let's not mix it up and be after timers and say, this is what we expected, because we didn't. Canelo looked nigh on impossible in the build up to that fight. Beating Callum Smith and Billy Joe Saunders and Caleb Plant, becoming undisputed at 168 pounds, beating Gennady Golovkin once, and then he had that contentious draw, and then he went on to beat him in the trilogy. So that's shown that he's still at the peak of his powers, because he went on and beat Golovkin for the 3rd time after the Bivol loss, and then Bivol went on and beat Gilberto Ramirez, Zurdo, who's massive for a light heavyweight. I don't know how he got down to that weight. Was he 43-0, 42-0, something going into that fight? And Bivol schooled him. You knew from the first 10 seconds of that fight that this is going to be nothing more or nothing less than a Bivol masterclass, and that's what it proved to be. So yeah, let's not take anything away from Bivol here. He was an underdog with the bookies. He was every boxing prediction show that I know of picked Canelo just because it is Canelo, and you think that if it goes to the cards in Vegas, that he's going to get the victory. But this was close on the cards. It shouldn't have been, but it went to the right man, and Bivol got the win. He's light heavyweight champion. Him against Artur Beterbiev in 2023 is a mouth-watering prospect. It's the irresistible force meets the immovable object. It's Batman against Superman. It's everything that you want to throw at it. And Bivol, for me, is rightly given our fight of the year. Honourable mention, as Osh said, we've lost Osh from the last 10 minutes of the podcast. He'll be back on next week's show. But Tasha Jonas, I think, to revitalise her career at 38, she's always gracious with the time with SimBoxx. We've had some great interviews with Tasha this year to go on and win that elusive world title, then to win 2 more and be unified at 154 pounds. That roll of the dice, the last minute roll of the dice with her and Joe Gallagher to go out there and win in great fashion on that Carnbrook undercard, knocking out Chris Namus in 2 rounds. And now she puts herself in the shop window for a real autumn finish to her career. She's got the likes of Clarissa Shields calling her out now. She's got Terry Harper in an undisputed fight if they can put their differences to the side. She can step down and fight Jessica McCaskill from undisputed at welterweight. There's a plethora of options for Tasha Jonas, so she's a rightful runner-up. But all in all, going through these awards now, Rich, just to bring you back in, it's when you realise that this is what we love about sport. We mentioned at the start, we wanted to get the negativity out of the way with Conor Benn, with the scoring controversies and things like that. We got that out of the way. But all in all, a great year of boxing in 2022. We was treated to some high-level events, some high-level performances, and some great moments.
Absolutely. I think we have to give a shout out to all your nominees. Everything that we've talked about, I think it was a brilliant year. And considering what we had all just been through the couple of years previously with the pandemic and all that, I think we all needed that. I think it's something that just bring the sport became alive again. And I think 2023 is going to be a very good year, starting with Eubank and Smith, one for us all to get our teeth into.
Absolutely. And in next week's podcast, which will be available from Tuesday next week, this podcast will be available from Thursday the 5th of Jan. We'll be back out on the 8th of Jan, on 9th of Jan, sorry, with the regular Let's Stop Boxing podcast. We will look forward to 2023. We'll be reviewing Tank Davis, who's fighting Hector Luis Garcia. Not the Garcia we want with Tank. We're obviously all clamoring for the Tank Davis against Ryan Garcia fight. That looks like it might happen later in 2023. We don't know what to expect with those guys. Him, Tio Lopez, Devin Haney, they're all at different weights now, and for so long it seemed like they was destined to be the Four Kings, which is the biggest bluff in recent boxing history. Like, the disrespect to compare them to the original Four Kings. But yeah,
what a division though! What a division that is! We've got some treats coming this year with that, haven't we?
We hope so. We hope so, and we will look forward to all that on next week's podcast. And of course, looking forward to you, Smith. Guys, I thank you for listening today. I thank you to my co-host, Rich, who you'll be seeing a lot more of in an interviewing capacity for SimBoxx. He'll be joining us on the podcast. And, of course, my longtime co-host, Osh Williams. He'll be back on from Monday. If I can point you in the direction of our YouTube channel, we've got some great interviews on there over the past few days. We spoke to Ryan Harris, new signing for Kieran Farrell. We spoke to Kieran Farrell himself ahead of a big 2023. We spoke to Nicola Hopewell, who's going to be fighting for a 3rd time in her career. And we spoke to the big Geordie heavyweight, Stephen Robinson, who had a cracking win over Nick Campbell at the back end of December. Great interview. So, guys, if you can go check them out on the SimBoxx YouTube channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, the like button, and check us out on social media at SimBoxx1 on Twitter, at Sim_Box on Instagram. And we will catch you on next week's episode. Thank you.